Well, when we think of resilience, the picture that usually comes to mind is probably one of this high-powered, hyper-masculine endurance athletes like David Goggins, or this extremely gifted military professionals like Jocko Willink, or it could be this high-powered tech executive CEOs, people who just like have everything sorted out. They are hustling, grinding, they're going after their dreams. We got a great physique, they're making $1 million. Yeah, basically the idea is they have everything sorted out, and we usually, at least I used to look up to people like that to learn resilience from, and they were the embodiment of resilience for me, except there was a little bit of a problem. I had severe depression. I was struggling with severe social isolation, and we were talking about roughly 2 to 3 years prior, generally during that time from 2021 to somewhere between starting of 2022. I also was struggling with chronic pain. I mean, I still do. Like, it's not going away. At this point, it's my friend, and I am learning how to deal with that. But I digress. Point is, I had a very different set of challenges compared to these prototypical role models of resilience. So I had to find my own version of resilience, which actually made me learn a few things about resilience and about myself. And I think that a lot of those ideas are not mainstream. This is not what's being talked about in the personal development space when we're talking about resilience, particularly with the prominence of something like the hustle culture and our hyper-materialistic desires and aspirations. Hey guys, this is Saad with Overcome Yourself, and in this video I'm gonna share with you 3 key ideas that I think plays an instrumental role in us being more resilient. Well, let's start by defining resilience. So here's a definition from Wikipedia, which says resilience is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, aka toughness. And another one from American Psychological Association, which is saying resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. Oh, I like that one. Both of these definitions, I think, points to the basic fact that resilience ultimately comes down to falling off course and being able to set sail again or get back on track with the least mental strain or getting dragged down by the setback. So that definition actually segues nicely into the first point that I want to talk to you guys about, which is the role of self-compassion in resilience. Let's start by defining self-compassion. So self-compassion is basically the idea of being kind to yourself instead of beating yourself up when things go wrong. It became popularized in the West as Buddhism gained more of a mainstream popularity. Self-compassion is very much a Buddhist concept, comes from the mindfulness tradition. And the way it works is basically you watch your inner critic, or that voice that's inside your head constantly telling you how you're falling short, and you bring in a soothing, kinder voice that is more friendly to you. And I think self-compassion is not something that comes easily to most of us. It definitely doesn't for me. I mean, I've gotten a lot better over the past few years than I used to be. I grew up in a very demanding and abusive environment, and a lot of expectations were placed on me. As is often the case with a lot of South Asian families, I was expected to perform at a very high level in school and academia, and falling even a little bit short of those very high standards meant a lot of shame and embarrassment. And the way I would put it is basically it represented survival threat. So over time, I have internalized a lot of those voices, and that's how I used to view life. Like, basically, failing and getting off course represented the end of it for me. So I used to assign a lot of importance to everything. Like, failing one job interview would be something very dreadful because I would immediately personalize that as to how that is proof of me not being good enough, or how there is no hope for me being able to break into the industry or land a job. That is a voice that I internalized growing up. The problem with that is you beat yourself up and exhaust yourself psychologically every time something bad happens. And not only that, because of these catastrophizing narratives, you have a lot of difficulty having faith in the process and believing when there is quote unquote no proof that things are gonna work out, which is often the case. Like, if you have started applying for jobs and you don't have one, it's hard to believe that you are good enough, depending on, of course, the voices that goes on inside our heads. And it's the same thing when you are in pursuit of a new career. I have been experiencing a lot of that with this YouTube channel and making these videos, but you get the idea. Beating ourselves up inside our heads, it makes resilience difficult, because if you are telling yourself things like why you are not good enough, how you are never gonna amount to anything. Oh my god, like, now that I think about it, my inner voice used to be so critical. Like, I would call myself stupid and all kinds of names in my head, and how none of my effort is gonna amount to anything. And that takes away from your conviction in the process. And the process usually involves falling off track and getting back on the horse as soon as possible, which is the very definition of resilience. And if your inner critic is strong, it becomes very, very challenging. And that is exactly where self-compassion comes. Instead of being judgmental and critical of your mistakes when things go wrong, you be a friend to yourself, and you tell yourself that we learn and grow from the process, and have faith that the next time it's gonna be better. It's going to take a few times of falling off course and then getting back on track, but repetition is how we learn. And sometimes that learning is very subtle, like it's hard for the brain to recognize. So with self-compassion, we can bring understanding and love to the process and be there for ourselves. The tricky thing about self-compassion is that if it's a goal or a pursuit that's important to you alone, no one's really gonna do it for you, because they wouldn't know that you are beating yourself up in your head. And then generally we don't talk about our insecurities, and unless it's with our very close and loved ones, and that makes sense. You don't want to go talking about your problems with everyone in the world. So generally, when you are on a pursuit by yourself that matters to you, you have to be there for yourself. you have to bring in the self-compassion. You have to talk to yourself the way you talk to a best friend, which would then in turn let you take the pressure off and breathe, and then lead to wonderful things like detachment from outcome and love for the process. And it just becomes more effortless. So as I was navigating my mental health challenges and chronic pain problems, I realized that I can't beat myself up according to standards of the average person who doesn't have these challenges. I have to talk to myself in a kinder manner, and when things don't go as expected, I need to be calm and be patient, and as corny as it sounds, give myself a little bit of self-love, which would come, of course, controlling the narrative in my head. So if the inner critic is particularly harsh, you'll be like, hey, we don't want to talk to ourselves like this, because it doesn't really help. So the next relatively unconventional idea that comes to mind when it comes to resilience is letting go. I know letting go can be this wishy-washy, spiritual, hokey idea that can be very hard to make sense of. And it goes by many names, like acceptance, surrender, and which oftentimes is interpreted as a sense of being passive, which is quite the opposite of resilience, right? Like, a lot of people have a resistance to the idea of letting go or acceptance because we feel like we're gonna become too peaceful and too kumbaya. So, but what I have found is it's quite the opposite of that. Let me try to illustrate with something that I went through this year. So at the beginning of the year, I set myself a Muay Thai challenge. Muay Thai is a sport that I love, and I have always wanted to be a regular in the scene. So one of my 2024 resolutions was like, let's build a stable Muay Thai practice, and I'm gonna do it for 5 days every week, and feel very comfortable doing that. So develop my physical fitness to the point where I can do it sustainably for 5 days a week, and I keep doing it for at least a year. To that end, I decided to set myself a goal of doing 30 sessions. I think it was in 3 months. And I was being fairly regular, and I was working at it, but I failed at it horribly. I couldn't complete the 30 day challenge. I gave up at 23, and I had to leave training with severe runner's knee that took me months to recover from. And I'll be honest, it was very depressing because I love the community, love the sport, I love the coaches, the people, and the scene. It was so energizing, and I was at my day job, 9-to-5 day job at that time, and which was remote, and I would not have any social interaction, and I would look forward to going to the gym and training with people, and all of them was just not there anymore. Instead, there was this like huge vacuum. It also kind of hit me that I'm not quite cut out for this. I'm in my 30s, and most of the people who are training are in their early to mid 20s. So this is probably too intense for me, at least at this moment. And I realized that I have to let go of so many good things that I was getting out of that practice. And it was a whole process of acceptance. Eventually I was able to. Now I am back at training in weightlifting, and I'm also running pretty frequently. And I feel good. My body feels good, and I certainly see this being scalable. And there are other communities that I am looking forward to join. For example, like as of now, I'm training towards a 7K because that's the minimum requirement to join a running club. All that is to say that the way you can move on to the next chapter of your life is by letting go of the old. And sometimes that's hard because there is so much about that part of your life that you probably love, and it can be a challenging process. But as we get more and more mature, spiritually and psychologically, we realize that change is the only constant, and for something new to come into our lives, we have to let go of what was before. And sometimes life forces us to do that. And how does that make us more resilient? Because the better we are at accepting and acknowledging that we have to let go, and we can do that, the sooner we would be back on track of doing this thing called life. This is probably more abstract and in more broader sense, but it does apply to our day-to-day life. For example, if you have a difficult interaction with a colleague at work, instead of getting hung up on that, if you can just let it slide and flow with the demands of the moment, which usually involves focusing on the task at hand and reorienting yourself to that, it just becomes more effortless, which is one hallmark of resilience, because resilient people, they get back on track quickly and without much resistance. Practicing the art of letting go, or acceptance, or surrender, whichever you want to call it, really helps you with that. The way I see it now, it is not about being kumbaya and doing nothing, but about reducing the inner resistance, making peace with what is, and then working with what is available to us. Well, the last and final idea that I want to talk to you guys about, that I think makes a person more resilient, is being able to have fun as we go about life. And this is something that didn't used to come naturally to me at all. I grew up, again, in a very conservative, authoritarian, strict, uptight family, and the concept of having fun is non-existent in my family. And and that is how I was as well. Like, everything was seen through this lens of do or die. Everything was very serious. And whenever someone tries to have lighthearted banter, it's usually perceived as offense. And there are consequences of living like this, very real consequences, because you are so uptight, carrying so much tension in your body. Like, it's gonna leak your energy, and it's gonna make it very hard to go at it for longer periods of time. The thing is, like, if you are not being able to relax and enjoy the process, you are just not gonna go very far compared to people who are capable of doing that. And actually, the person who opened my eyes to this whole notion is this spiritual teacher / very famous author named Michael Singer. He has this book called The Untethered Soul that I first read. Amazing book, I highly recommend it. I'll link it in the description. But he has these talks on YouTube where he is just laughing at people for being stressed. So basically what he says is we are a bunch of emptiness, because 99.9% of us is empty, hanging out in emptiness in the middle of nowhere in the galaxy. We're here for a short period of time if you compare to the existence of eternity, and we're gonna be gone just like this. So what are we stressing about? And then what he recommends is if we can get into a place where we can just enjoy the show. And as you try to do that, you find there's so much hard to do because your mind starts going into places, it starts highlighting on your problems. But if you can relax and enjoy and smile at that and cultivate a sense of humor in the midst of all of that, you often see a lot of energy is freed up and you just can attend the present moment or whatever it is that you are needed to do better. So by letting go, again, like all of this comes back to a level of letting go. I mean, I guess the way it works is you let go and that leads to a sense of lightheartedness and having fun in the process, and then you just have more energy available to get back on track and attend what is required in the moment, which is ultimately what resilience is about. Now, the thing with the spiritual masters is that they make it so simple, but it doesn't come naturally to me. I have to have a conscious practice at this. And the way I usually do it is I remind myself that it's not that big of a deal. Like, if I fail at this, there is something else waiting for me. And as long as I have the right mindset in place and I am doing the right things, I'm gonna end up somewhere. It's all good. And actually, I leverage this whole notion of having fun to cure my insomnia. I had terrible insomnia. I didn't sleep for I think more than 5 hours for a year straight. And then there was this mindset shift that happened, that instead of tossing and turning in bed, I'd just like wake up and tell myself that, okay, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. That's not happening. And probably I'm not gonna be able to perform at work the next day, but all of that, you know what? All of that's okay. It's great. Like, it's if it doesn't happen, I fully accept it, and I'm probably not gonna feel that great in my body. Now let's focus on how much fun I can have in this horrible state. And sometimes that would involve cooking a great meal. Sometimes it would be like just watching comedy and watching TV and whatnot, maybe talking to a friend on the phone. And paradoxically, as I started dreading staying up late at night less, and my relationship with that changed, I started becoming more and more relaxed in the face of that, and that helped with my sleep. Now, even though I kept waking up in the middle of the night, I would be able to fall asleep because I was having a good time. The way all of that plays into resilience is you free up a lot of energy, you feel good, you are more motivated to get back on track, and it's effortless. So you're conserving more energy, which lets you go further and longer, and also you have a good time doing that instead of stressing about outcomes or just being very serious and very uptight about it. And that raises your general level of energy and productivity, all of which in turn then feeds into your level of resilience. Hey guys, if you made it till the end of the video, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here. If you got any value out of this, make sure to like and of course subscribe. If you have thoughts around resilience and how you have cultivated more resilience in your own life, let us know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next video.